Hi, I'm Marci Kobayashi, and I'm back again with another excerpt from my book, Finding Yoyu. And if you've been following along, then you know that in the last one we had just made the decision to step in and help take care of my mother and father-in-law. And we moved them from their home in a remote part of Hiroshima into our tiny little condo in Tokyo. So I'll take it from there. To our friends and family, it seemed like our decision to move Akira's parents across country to live with us happened overnight. It wasn't such a split-second decision, though the moment of truth, if you will, did happen at night during that quiet conversation in the dark. That conversation took very few words, lasting barely a minute, because the seeds for the conversation were planted years earlier. Before his mother's surgery, Akira and I rarely talked about the future because we both already knew that someday the care of his parents would fall to us. That someday always seemed so far away, especially when his parents were so capable. I didn't question the someday plan because in Japanese families, traditionally, the eldest son takes on the responsibility of caring for the parents when they are no longer able to care for themselves. From our first few days of dating, Akira made it clear to me that he took his role seriously. I'm grateful to him for that because I knew it was part of the package. If I wanted to continue a life with him, it meant someday sharing it with his parents too. I'm also grateful that he had the clarity and maturity then to make sure I knew this. I had a choice. I could have walked away. Being the eldest son also means that traditionally, Akira would have taken over the family home and carried on the family business, rice farming and logging, or rather managing the forest. If Akira had carried on in his father's footsteps, we never would have met. Akira's hometown is in the mountains of Hiroshima, far from my hometown near Seattle, Washington, in the U.S. As traditional as they both were about some things, I don't think Otosan, Akira's father, or Okasan, his mother, ever expected or wanted either of their sons to carry on the family tradition of working the land. The Kobayashi property covers a large area in the Hiba Mountains, and besides the rice fields in front of the house, most of it is forested. Rice farming does not bring in a lot of cash, and therefore Okasan and Otosan worked other jobs to help pay for their sons to go to college. When Akira was in grade school, his mother ran the kitchens at the ski resort up the street. She was gone so much during those early years that Akira says he has more childhood memories of his grandma and a nanny than his own mother. Otosan, Akira's father, was also busy. As a second-born son, he wasn't obligated to follow in his father's footsteps. Instead, Otosan left his hometown in Tottori Prefecture and married into the Kobayashi family. Okasan, Akira's mother, was an only child, and her marriage to Otosan was decided when she was still barely 10 years old. They didn't marry right away, but after the war, Otosan came to live with the Kobayashi family and learned how to work the fields, growing rice, until Okasan was old enough to wed. When Otosan wasn't working the fields, he was logging the local forests. In the winter, when there was too much snow to work the land, he took jobs in the city. The twist of his spine is testament to the hard physical labor he put in over the years. The first time we talked as a family about the possibility of living together was in 2007. There was a TV show that featured foreign women married to Japanese men. The show sensationalized how women like me make their lives here in Japan. The producers loved to make a big deal about the cultural differences and encouraged the foreign wives to talk about the struggles they face here. I thought the show was ridiculous and used to make fun of it, swearing I would never agree to be on the show. Then, one day, a representative from the TV show found our website and noticed that one of our staff, a decidedly Caucasian woman, had a Japanese last name. They wondered if she was married to a Japanese man, and if so, would she be willing to be interviewed? She immediately declined, and I hesitantly raised my hand instead because I thought it would be good advertising for the school we were running then. Unfortunately, the name and location of our school was never introduced, so though my students loved seeing me on TV, it didn't bring us any new business. I lamented this for months after, because we invested many days into the show. While our business got only about 15 seconds of airtime, the TV producers had a field day with Otosan. His story got way more airtime than anyone else during that episode. The TV producers were especially intrigued by Otosan's background as a boy soldier. I roll my eyes when I think of the way they portrayed him and introduced his story. Don't get me wrong, I would never make light of what happened to him or the decision he made as a young man. It's just that they used his story to sensationalize my relationship with Akira. Daughter of the enemy marries into a kamikaze pilot's family. It's true. Otosan was one of the young men who enlisted as a teenager at the end of World War II and volunteered for the special forces that were trained to be kamikaze pilots. At this point in the war, the Japanese did not have any airplanes left to spare, so the soldiers were trained to sink ships by blasting off from shore in man-propelled torpedoes. Otosan loves to talk about these glory days and how, as second-born son, he was not duty-bound to his family, and therefore it made sense for him to volunteer for this honorable role. What a crazy world we live in that volunteering for a suicide mission would ever make sense to anyone. We're lucky he lived to tell the story of his training. As the TV show dramatized, in early August 1945, he and the group he trained with were given their orders. They were expected to make their blast-off the following morning. Otosan loved to reminisce about the night they had their last meal. Some of the boys were thrilled to have white rice, while he was thrilled to get yokon, a traditional dessert made from beans and a ton of sugar. The next morning, August 15th, their departure was delayed, and everyone on base gathered in formation for a radio announcement at noon. It was the now famous announcement from the late Emperor Hirohito declaring Japan's surrender and the end of the war. Because of the timely end, Otosan has the special title of Tokotai no Ikinokori, or a Special Forces Survivor. My life today would have been so much different if that war had ended even one day later. The TV show did a good job of getting the general gist of Otosan's story, even if they messed up some of the details. And I'm going to save those details and the rest of the story of the TV show for the next excerpt. And I hope you come back to listen, because it's about the trip we took to Hiroshima with the TV crew, where they filmed us there with his parents, and that's where we talked about living together for the first time. So how's that for a teaser? And I'll try to find a link to the actual TV show. I'm not able to show it. I'm not able to show the recording we have, but I probably can find another recording of it somewhere, and it might be fun for you to see us back in 2007 and that whole show. Some of you watching this may have actually seen it, or you might remember the series if you live in Japan or lived in Japan. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you'll be back. Thanks.